Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about a concept that is simple in words but incredibly powerful in practice. Always keep your mouth shut. Now that might sound a bit harsh at first, but what I really mean is this. Mastering the art of silence is one of the most effective tools for self-control, growth, and both personal and professional life. In today's fast-paced world, where everyone feels the need to be heard, the ability to stay silent is often mistaken for weakness. But in reality, silence is one of the greatest indicators of inner strength. It takes courage to resist the urge to respond, especially in moments when you are provoked or challenged. When a person remains quiet, it doesn't mean they have nothing to say. It often means they have chosen to take the higher road, to maintain control over their emotions, and to avoid being manipulated into reacting. This kind of restraint reflects self-discipline, emotional maturity, and a deep understanding of timing and consequence. Those who possess true strength don't need to prove themselves with words. They understand that silence can often say more than speaking ever could. Think of the moments when someone insults or belittles you. Your silence in that situation does not indicate defeat. Instead, it sends a powerful message that you refuse to be dragged into pettiness. It shows that you value your energy and peace more than fleeting pride. Silence in the face of provocation displays an unshakable calmness that can actually disarm the other person. The strong are not always the loudest in the room. Often they are the ones who observe quietly, analyze deeply, and act only when necessary. Moreover, silence serves as a shield against regret. How many times have we spoken out of anger or frustration and wished we could take it back? The strength to hold back in such moments saves us from long-term damage. It takes a powerful will to remain silent when everything inside you is screaming to speak. But that self-restraint is exactly what separates the impulsive from the wise. By keeping your mouth shut, especially during emotional surges, you protect your dignity and maintain your integrity. You show that you are not a slave to temporary emotions, but a master of your own reactions. Finally, silence gives you the upper hand in situations where words could easily betray you. Whether in personal relationships or professional environments, the person who speaks less often commands more authority. Why? Because their words carry weight. They are not scattered or wasted. They are measured and deliberate. People learn to pay attention when someone who rarely speaks finally does. That level of influence doesn't come from talking more. It comes from talking less, and only when it truly matters. And that ability to know when to speak and when to stay silent is a clear sign of inner strength. One of the most effective ways to avoid unnecessary conflict is by simply choosing silence over reaction. Many arguments start from minor misunderstandings or emotionally charged statements that spiral out of control. When people speak without thinking, especially in moments of stress, anger, or frustration, they often say things that inflame the situation further. A simple disagreement can quickly evolve into a full-blown conflict when both parties are too focused on defending themselves rather than understanding the other. However, by keeping your mouth shut, you allow space for emotions to settle and for clarity to emerge, which can prevent tension from escalating into confrontation. Silence can serve as a barrier that blocks the path to heated disputes. In times of conflict, words become weapons, sharpened by emotion and aimed at winning rather than resolving. Responding immediately, especially without fully understanding the situation, often leads to defensiveness, blame shifting, or even personal attacks. But silence offers a pause, a break in the emotional momentum, giving you and the other person time to cool down. That moment of stillness can make the difference between a disagreement resolved through discussion and one that festers into resentment. Silence in such instances is not surrender. It's a conscious strategy to protect peace. Furthermore, when you keep silent during provocation, we rob the other person of the power they seek. Often, people bait others into arguments as a way of asserting control or dominance. When you refuse to engage, when you offer no reaction, you show that you're not easily moved by their attempts. This doesn't mean you're suppressing your feelings or avoiding confrontation altogether. It means you're choosing a more intelligent, less destructive path. Silence can act like a mirror. It reflects the other person's behavior back to them and often forces them to reflect on their own actions instead of continuing the attack. Additionally, but when you train yourself to prevailing, you preserve your peace, you give yourself the advantage of time. Time to evaluate the situation, consider your response carefully, or decide whether the issue is even worth your attention. Conflict can often be avoided not by winning the argument, but by refusing to participate in it at all. In a society that constantly emphasizes the importance of speaking up, the value of listening often gets overlooked. Yet, listening is one of the most powerful skills a person can develop. When you keep your mouth shut and give your full attention to what others are saying, you gain access to insights, perspectives, and knowledge that would otherwise go unnoticed. Too many people listen only to reply, not to understand. By staying silent, and through you absorbs what is being communicated, you begin to see beyond words. Yours or intention ultimately can be explored is impact by asking only what you tell, so you can find important. Listening is not a passive act. It is deeply active and highly engaging. When you listen with your mind fully present, you are not only processing information, but also building empathy. You begin to understand the reasons behind people's thoughts and behaviors. You learn what motivates them, what worries them, and what inspires them. This understanding can lead to stronger relationships, better communication, and more thoughtful responses. But it all begins with restraint. The choice to stay silent and allow someone else the space to speak without interruption, or judgment. Furthermore, silence creates room for observation, which is often where the real learning occurs. When you're not speaking, you're watching. You notice things others miss. The small details, the contradictions, the body language, and the unspoken truths. In meetings, classrooms, conversations, or even arguments, the silent observer often gathers the most accurate picture of what's really going on. While others are busy making noise, the quiet ones are collecting knowledge, reading the room, and gaining insights that help them make better decisions later. Remaining quiet doesn't mean you're disengaged. It often means you are preparing to act wisely. Most importantly, listening builds wisdom. It allows you to learn from others' experiences, perspectives, and mistakes without having to experience them yourself. By keeping your mouth shut and listening more, you expose yourself to new ideas and challenge your assumptions. This process of absorbing and reflecting on what you hear is the foundation of lifelong learning and intellectual maturity. Once words leave your mouth, there is no way to pull them back. This simple truth carries profound weight in human relationships and interactions. Words are not just sounds or letters strung together. They carry emotions, intentions, and power. A careless statement made in anger or frustration can linger in someone's mind far longer than you expect. Even if forgiveness follows, the impact of those words remains. When we speak without thinking, we often fail to realize how deeply our words might wound someone or how lasting their effects might be. Choosing silence, especially in sensitive moments, helps prevent damage that apologies may never fully repair. In times of heightened emotion, people tend to say things they don't fully mean. Harsh criticisms, rash accusations, or deeply personal insults. But the problem is, no matter how much we regret those words later, we cannot undo their influence. The pain caused by cruel remarks often runs deeper than physical wounds. The scars left by verbal harm can affect a person's confidence, trust, and mental peace. When you understand that your words can either heal or harm, you become more mindful of how and when to speak. Choosing to remain quiet in difficult moments protects not only the other person but also your own integrity and character. Moreover, the things we say can come back to haunt us in ways we never expected. In the age of digital communication, a single message, post, or voice note can be recorded, shared, or used against us, even years later. Whether in friendships, professional settings, or public platforms, speaking without caution can lead to misunderstandings, reputational damage, or lost opportunities. Once your words are out in the world, you no longer have control over how they are interpreted or used. Silence, in contrast, increasation that you are not light before what later you will not get anything. It additionally, the discipline of guarding your words fosters a greater sense of respect and responsibility. People who weigh their words carefully are often seen as wise, composed, and thoughtful. They do not rush into speaking, but instead consider the long-term consequences of what they might say. This deliberate approach to communication builds trust. Others begin to see you as someone who speaks with purpose, not impulse. By keeping your mouth shut in uncertain or emotionally charged situations, you earn the respect of those around you. They know that when you do speak, your words will be measured, meaningful, and worth listening to. People often assume that to gain attention or respect, they must speak frequently and loudly. However, the opposite is often true. Strategic silence, knowing when not to speak, can actually command more respect than constant chatter. Those who remain quiet in moments where others feel the need to fill this silence are often viewed as wise, thoughtful, and composed. This is because silence implies a level of inner confidence that does not need external validation. When someone speaks less but listens more, their words naturally carry greater weight. Others begin to recognize that when this person finally chooses to speak, what they say is deliberate and meaningful. This kind of controlled silence is often mistaken for mystery. From me saying in situations where others expect a reaction, you throw them off balance. Your quietness creates a psychological space that others interpret as depth. Strategic silence makes people wonder about your thoughts, intentions, and insights. This curiosity naturally gives you an upper hand in many social and professional scenarios. Furthermore, silence during conflict or debate can disarm opponents more effectively than words. When someone is trying to provoke or dominate a conversation, they expect a reaction. Responding immediately gives them the attention and energy they are seeking. But when you remain calm and quiet, refusing to engage in emotional theatrics, you demonstrate composure and self-control. This quiet defiance often unsettles the other person and shifts the power dynamic in your favor. Instead of fueling the fire, you extinguish it by not adding words to the heat. People begin to associate your silence with emotional intelligence and maturity, traits that naturally draw admiration and respect. In professional settings, strategic silence can be a powerful tool of influence. Leaders who don't rush to speak or interrupt others are often seen as more competent and trustworthy. When you allow others to speak first, you gain insight into their thinking and can tailor your response more effectively. Your silence can also create a sense of authority. By choosing when to speak and when to withhold, you set the tone for communication. Your presence becomes stronger not through the number of words you speak, but through the impact of your silence. Over time, this balance of restraint and timing elevates your reputation and earns you a place of quiet respect among peers and superiors alike. In a world driven by oversharing and public validation, there is immense power in keeping your personal matters to yourself. Not everything needs to be said, shared, or announced. When you keep your mouth shut about your private life, your struggles, your relationships, or even your goals, you protect your emotional space and guard your mental well-being. Privacy is a shield. It helps you avoid unnecessary opinions, judgments, and interference. Once your personal affairs become public knowledge, they are no longer within your control. By remaining silent, you preserve the sanctity of your inner world, allowing it to grow without external pressure. Revealing too much, especially to the wrong people, can be a mistake that costs more than you expect. Not everyone around you wishes you well. Some listen just to find weaknesses, to gossip, or even to sabotage. Sharing your dreams and future plans with others might invite envy or subtle discouragement, especially if those around you feel threatened by your ambition. The moment your intentions become public, you open the door to scrutiny, expectations, and even mockery. Silence keeps you safe from those whose words could drain your motivation or plant seeds of doubt in your mind. It's not secrecy, it's self-preservation. Moreover, keeping your plans private gives you the freedom to change course without having to explain yourself. When you speak too soon about what you intend to do, you create a kind of public contract. If plans shift or fail, you may feel embarrassed or pressured to continue on a path that no longer serves you, just to save face. But if you work silently, you have the flexibility to adapt, revise, and grow without outside influence. Progress made in silence is progress made freely. It belongs to you alone, untainted by others' timelines or standards of success. Finally, silence protects the energy behind your goals. When you talk about your dreams too early or too often, you sometimes lose the urgency to actually act on them. Speaking about what you will do can create a false sense of accomplishment, tricking your brain into thinking you've already done something worthwhile. But when you hold your tongue and focus instead on the action itself, your energy remains directed toward execution, not explanation. The discipline to stay silent about your plans keeps your energy concentrated, your focus sharp, and your determination intact. In silence, your intentions gather strength. And when the results finally speak for themselves, they speak louder than words ever could. Emotions are powerful forces that can either guide us wisely or push us into regrettable decisions, depending on how we manage them. In emotionally intense moments, whether it's anger, frustration, sadness, or anxiety, our first instinct is often to speak. We may feel the urge to defend ourselves, lash out, or explain our feelings in the heat of the moment. But this is precisely when silence becomes a vital tool. Choosing to keep your mouth shut during emotional surges allows your rational mind time to catch up with your emotional response. It grants you a moment of pause where you can reflect rather than react. And that moment often makes all the difference. When people speak while overwhelmed by emotion, they tend to exaggerate, accuse, or say things they don't truly mean. These reactions, though unintentional, can be deeply damaging to relationships and reputations. Silence helps you bypass the immediate temptation to speak from a place of pain rather than clarity. It's not about suppressing your feelings. It's about holding space for them without turning them into weapons. Silence gives your emotions the breathing room they need to settle. It allows you to feel without escalating the situation or saying something that might cause long-term harm. Emotional control through silence also builds your resilience. When you learn to keep quiet in the face of provocation, you're not bottling up emotions. You are mastering them. You begin to develop a calm inner center that doesn't get easily shaken by external chaos. People may try to get under your skin. Situations may become stressful, but your silence becomes your anchor. Instead of reacting impulsively, you observe, you think, and then, if necessary, you respond. This behavior is not only empowering but also admired by others. It reflects maturity and inner strength, traits that command both respect and influence. Additionally, silence can de-escalate tense situations in ways that words often cannot. When arguments begin, emotions typically rise with every sentence exchanged. But silence interrupts this cycle. It removes the fuel from the fire, diffusing the intensity and allowing space for resolution rather than escalation. Silence signals that you are in control of yourself, that you choose peace over drama and wisdom over pride. Over time, this kind of response shapes your emotional intelligence. You start recognizing that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to, and that your peace of mind is far more valuable than winning a momentary exchange. In conclusion, silence is not merely the absence of words. It is a deliberate act of strength, wisdom, and control. In a noisy world where everyone is eager to speak, those who master the art of keeping their mouth shut stand out as calm, composed, and powerful. Whether it is to avoid conflict, protect your plans, preserve your energy, or control your emotions, silence serves as your quiet armor. It allows you to think clearly, act wisely, and speak only when your words can make a meaningful impact. So remember, every time you choose silence over impulse, you're not just withholding words, you're exercising power.